What's a mother to do? Any reasonable person who knew Mrs. Spencer could vouch for her continuing strenuous effort to make a decent individual out of Teddy, her only child and the very bane of her existence. While there may have been differing opinions about her motive for persevering, was it out of maternal love, stubbornness, or concern for her own reputation? Her constancy could never be called into question, but success eluded her with aggravating regularity. It was not that Teddy committed any serious crime, or that he was a real danger to anyone. Neither was he known to be feisty to his hard-working single parent or her mother with whom they lived. Almost everything that gave him pleasure was custom-made to produce high-grade embarrassment for Mrs. Spencer. To add insult to injury, the boy had become inured to punishment. Teddy's favorite malpractice was to scull school, which caused double concern for his teachers, who were not only concerned as teachers, but who must also have felt an extra measure of responsibility for the boy's behavior, as they enjoyed more than a parent-teacher relationship with his mother. The root of the problem was that Mrs. Spencer herself was a respected teacher who took her profession seriously and held it in high regard. In spite of her booming voice and raucous laughter, she was ever mindful of the decorum required of her station and tried to conduct herself accordingly, especially on the streets of Jonestown. Mrs. Spencer taught at a school outside of the community, which kept her away for enough hours to allow Teddy, who attended school near home, to get into all kinds of prohibited activity in her absence from home. Mrs. Spencer was short and stout, but not fat, with slightly bowed legs, not the kind of physique one would readily associate with a sprinter, and she was fond of hobble skirts and spike-heeled shoes. Despite her unathletic appearance, however, she was known to hike up the skirt above her knees and discard the shoes in the middle of Penn Street in order to facilitate her pursuit of Teddy in the wake of some misdemeanor. Teddy, on the other hand, was a master of elusiveness, bobbing and weaving between people, handcarts, and other vehicular traffic as he fled his mother's clutches. Consequently, Mrs. Spencer often was forced to resort to wily schemes in order to apprehend him for punishment, forced to go it alone in the absence of a Mr. Spencer, and with minimal help, if any, from her aged mother. Sculling school had earned Teddy many a licking with his mother's broad leather belt, although in the overall scheme of things, he must have escaped many more than he received. His greatest pleasure, however, whether during school time or outside of it, was the proscribed practice of racing boat horse, or marbles in the water gutters of Penn Street with his cronies. The practice was to have one boy use his barefoot, most of them were usually barefooted anyway, to dam the water flowing along the gutter, put the boat horses in the dam, and then move the foot, and the horses, as they call them, would run down the water table. The true indication that a race was underway was the accompanying shouting, but more so the frantic movements of the jockeys as they urged their respective boat horse along the water table. Doubled over, they would walk alongside their floating steeds, either flashing their hands in a whipping motion alternately in front and behind themselves, or flapping their raised elbows like featherless wings. It was exactly such a spectacle that greeted Mrs. Spencer on her way home one Saturday afternoon, immediately upon turning from Baker Street into Penn Street. Having despaired of keeping her errant offspring inside the house by hiding his shoes on previous occasions, she had hit upon the brilliant idea of hiding his pants instead before leaving home that morning. To her dismay, there was Teddy, in the frenzy of a boat horse race, his budding manhood pendulously keeping rhythm with his whipping motions. Many preteen boys did not wear underpants in those days. Up went Mrs. Spencer's skirt, off went her shoes, and interest in the boat horse race evaporated as Teddy took off along Penn Street and the mother-son chase became the feature event of the day.